Here we go. Good afternoon or good morning in some cases. I am a volunteer community ambassador with AARP here in Virginia. I am Trudy Murata. And from our earliest beginnings, AARP has championed lifelong learning. That's why AARP Virginia is thrilled to bring you our 5th year of Tuesday Explorers, a lifelong learning program offered every Tuesday from January through the end of April at 3 o'clock East Coast time for our curious explorers. For more than 60 years, AARP has been a wise friend and a fierce defender, helping individuals to ensure that their money, health, and happiness live as long as they do. AARP has earned a reputation as a wise friend and fierce defender through trusted information, tools, and advocacy designed to protect the health and financial security of older Americans and empower them to choose how they live as they age. And by promising to act as this wise friend and fierce defender, AARP is helping people who are 50 plus and their families feel confident, in control, and secure as they age. As this wise friend, AARP helps you protect yourself and your loved ones from frauds through our Fraud Watch Network program. We help you get healthy and stay healthy, care for loved ones, make connections, plan a trip, learn new technologies, attend a class, and have fun, like what we're doing here today with our Tuesday Explorer program. So I hope you'll continue to take advantage of these opportunities and more. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our guests from the magical community of community theater. And I'm going to have them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their background. I'll start with Margaret Chapman. Margaret, I'll give you the platform.
Sure. Hi, my name is Margaret, and I'm in the Northern Virginia area. I've been involved with community theater since 2016. The first show I worked on was Sweeney Todd. I was a light board operator. One of my friend asked me if I wanted to come and help out. She's like, "Oh, you just push a button. It's nothing." Um, and then, 2 days later, I walk in and there are 150 light cues. Uh, so it was quite a learning experience. But since then, I've gotten to do props, I produce. I actually met my husband doing community theater, and I'm excited to share all of the magic and the community that I love in community theater with you today. So thanks.
It will go to Ira Forstater. Ira, tell us about you and your background.
Hi, so my name is Ira. I also am in the Northern Virginia area and are primarily involved with the Little Theater of Alexandria. For me, this is a post-retirement activity, and it's kind of interesting, I guess, for the three of us speakers. We're all in different places as far as future retirement, just retired, and me having been retired for quite a while. And so I've been involved with the Little Theater about 12 years. And for me, it was kind of a combination of a personal reason and just a general reason to give back to the community. My personal reason was to get involved was really that one of my children just found that the arts was a really special thing for her in terms of helping with some illnesses and eventually finding her own career. And I thought, I really want to give back to the arts. And for me, since I have no artistic ability, really the theater was a great opportunity. I am not an actor and haven't been for since middle school. So I've been primarily involved with things like helping to build the set, also producing some shows, most recently assisting with Jekyll and Hyde, the musical, um, and Also involved with the theater management, working box office, front of house, and being on some committees as well. So I'm a really good example of a person who has very little artistic ability and just is finding great joy in being involved with the theater. And I hope you will too.
You have found your niche, it sounds to me. And last but not least, we have David Gross. David, would you tell us a little bit about you and your background?
Yeah, thank you. I live in Silver Spring, Maryland. I did theater in high school, loved it. I did a lot of things in high school. I went to college. I chose one extracurricular, which is student government. I went to grad school, I was trained as an economist. In my early 30s, auditioned for community theater in Maryland. I worked at Silver Spring Stage and a few other theaters. Then I became a father and I gave it up for a while, but my kids really loved theater and I did some things with them. And so for the past, see, what year is this? 14 years, I've been very strongly involved in theater again. In Maryland, people tend to be involved with a lot of different theaters. I have been on the board of Silver Spring Stage. I've acted, I've produced, I directed once. And somehow I found myself a few years ago head of what's called the Maryland Community Theater Festival Association, put on a state festival every year. And we just had one last weekend in Bethesda. And it's just been a fantastic, wonderful experience. It's what gives me joy. I retired a week ago today, hoping I can give some more time to this. Oh, and also during my working years, I spent 15 years at AARP from 1996 to 2011, and it is great to be back.
We're delighted to have you back. So, Margaret, I understand you've got the slideshow controls. So let's get started with what is community theater? You're on mute.
So I'm going to be talking about
Okay.
community theater. Yeah. We can go to the next slides, I guess, if we're able to do that. So, I'm really fortunate to get to talk about what community theater is. So for those of you who don't know, the basic idea of community theater is that we're all local and we're performing for our friends, our family, and our local community. The one difference from professional theater is we are essentially unpaid. So just about everyone, few exceptions, like when we need to hire musicians, for example, they'll be paid. But the producers, the directors, the actors, all the crew members, we are all doing it out of our love for theater and just our joy being involved and being with our friends. A lot of us join as members too, and some roles which are real great introductory ones like ushering and box office. You might get an offer to be able to have a free seat and see the theater. But I think David has mentioned he's involved with the American Association of Community Theaters, and that's our national organization that brings over 6,000 active community theaters together across the country. And just think of all of the performances that many community theaters can bring to our local communities. It's really quite incredible and really exceeds the amount of theater that can be shown and put together by professional theaters. Also in our local area here in the DC region, which covers Maryland, DC, and Northern Virginia, we also have an organization called the Washington Area Theater Community Honors. And so we have a system set up with adjudicators and judges who come and attend all of the theaters. And then we have an award ceremony and at the end of each year. And so that's another way for us to bring all of our theaters together. And one thing I'll mention too is that it's great to see our actors come from all the different areas, and they go around to the different theaters in all of our immediate jurisdictions. And so it's same with our lot of our crew members, even producers and directors. And so it's a lot of fun for me and a lot of us to just go to the other theaters as well to join in and celebrate our friends at the other local theaters. Um, and I did include this one quote here because it's really kind of describes the source of why we all do this community theater. That it becomes a network of friends. It really is a home away from home for a lot of us. We celebrate not just our theater achievements but we also celebrate other life events and also we share with the challenging things and the sorrows that inevitably come with life. It really is another family for a lot of us. And so uh, so I'll just go on to the list of some particular aspects. One thing about community theater is, again, we don't really expect anyone to have any special experience when they're coming in, though many do, but we welcome everyone of all ages, backgrounds, and levels of experience. It's fun. That's why we're here. It's got to be fun. If you're not enjoying it, then you should find something else to do. But there's social connections, there's new friendships, there's plenty of celebrations and parties. It's educational. A lot of our theaters also put on formal educational classes, both for adults and children. Our theater also has a summer camp for kids as well. But a lot of the training and education occurs in a non-formal way. If you're interested in learning how to paint a set, you don't have to know anything about it other than how to hold a brush, and you will be taught by very experienced people. So anything that you want to learn, Margaret mentioned about the soundboard, I think, or the light board, you can learn that too. And the other great thing about community theater is the variety. A lot of our theaters, we're not going to just do straight drama or only musicals. Most of our seasons will be a combination. And we'll also have stage readings. We also have improv groups. We have one acts. We have cabarets and a lot of other alternative forms of theater. One of the great things about community theater is just promotion of the arts, as I was describing. We promote it for students and we try to get local students involved, whether it's as actors, but also in roles dealing with stagecraft. And it's really exciting to have connections with local high school theater groups as well. We promote it for
Can
our,
I interrupt you
yeah.
for
Oh,
just
sure.
1 second? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Margaret, the slides are not advancing. Can you go to start slideshow and keep up with Ira for us?
I think that's where he is right now.
Okay. We're still seeing the original screen.
Oh, my screen says you're seeing the key aspects screen. You're not?
We are not.
Oh,
No, we're not
Interesting.
seeing them at all.
oh, interesting. Alrighty. I've never had that as an.
Interrupt Ira for a bit of technical
But-
programming.
How about now? Can you see key
Still on
aspects?
the original screen.
Really? Alrighty. Because it's telling me that that's where. Okay. Still the original screen?
Still original.
Alrighty.
And this is a great example of what happens in real life theater because, yeah, things happen, technical glitches, the lights go out. We have all kinds of things that happen, and that is part of the excitement of theater.
It happened in
Indeed.
our competition on Sunday or Saturday.
About that.
Same
The
thing.
original. Could you come down to key aspects maybe and advance them manually?
So the weird
I can jump in and share them. Give me 1 second.
Thank you. Because the weird part is on my screen, it is showing key aspects.
Oh, now I see it. Now we see it.
right? So like when I click on it, on mine, it says key aspects.
Yeah, it does now.
We see that now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, weird. That I've been seeing the whole time. Okay. Anyway,
Yeah, and and one of our real goals, as I was just saying, is promotion of the arts. So for students, for our audience, and for our wider community, it just adds so much to the whole social environment of our community. I think to have that available, the theater. Um, and as I mentioned in the one quote here, which I really like, it offers the best of every world. There are creative aspects, artistic aspects, business aspects, and I know some of our other speakers are going to talk more about the different roles. And I just want to say that on the next screen, we're so thankful for our volunteers, and we hope some of you that are listening today will think about volunteering, um, because volunteers get us through times that no money can do. And it's much better to have volunteers than money. And a lot of us do run on shoestring budgets for our theaters. And the quote that I like to share with my volunteers is, "Don't ever question the value of volunteers. Noah's Ark was built by volunteers, and Titanic was built by professionals." So please think about volunteering. Thank you.
Thank you, Ira. Margaret, we are still on key aspects.
seriously, I've gone through 2 more slides. Okay, does the other person who says they were Amber, would you like to try and share them? Because apparently my Zoom and PowerPoint are not working today. Are you still there?
Amber?
We're seeing Amber's screen right now, but again, we're on the original, and we should be down to volunteers.
Sorry, I just need to move something out of my way.
Right. So weird. I do so many webinars, and that's the first time I've ever had that like stay on the single screen. Sorry about that, guys.
At least we didn't forget our lines.
Whew, thank goodness.
Also happened in our festival this weekend. Somebody forgot about it. So,
Hey, those improv skills to use, right?
yes.
Well done, Ira.
I've
All
been
right,
in a
Margaret.
plane with the back wall fell on me. So yes, you have to.
You're
So
on, Margaret.
Here we are at what are some of the roles that a volunteer can play in these productions.
Ay, ay, ay. Well, if you like technical stuff like that, you can have a lot of fun on the theater. Because I will say that so much of what we do, I feel like, has that sort of component. In my day job, I work with a lot of different nonprofits. I do strategic planning, and one of the groups I work with is called the Unfunded List. The guy who founded it is a theater guy, and whenever we bring new people on, his first question is always, have you ever done theater? Because we find that when we get to work on a daily basis with folks who understand the theater world and the dynamics, that people will just pitch in to get anything done, because you know that at 8 o'clock that show has to start, sometimes 8:05. But whether the props person got the right orange or not, someone needs to get an orange for that show to start. So maybe it's the stage manager, maybe it's the costumer. Everyone just has to pitch in to get it done. So I feel like we all got a little experience of that today. There are so many roles. I know Ira has talked about a couple of them that you can play in the theater. You don't have to be an actor, right? I know that's the thing that everyone sees, and it's super fun. And if that's really where your heart is, then go for it. Like I mentioned, I met my husband doing theater. He loves being on stage. I mean, the man can ham it up, and it's so much fun for him. I am more backstage. I started off, like I said, doing light board, and from there got more into the technical side. I've done a lot of props design, producing, box office, lots of set design. I've gotten into construction. So all of these things that you don't think you have skills to do, like Ira said, we will teach you. I'm sure if you walk into any community theater in your neighborhood, they will be happy to take you on. And if you've never used a drill before, it's okay. Trust me, they won't give you the load-bearing walls to put up, but they'll give you something to work on to build those skills. And you'll get to build this community and this family, and you'll learn so many new things in the process. So I think the next slide is awesome. So like I said, you can be front and center. You can, we do musicals. There are plays. Ira mentioned more like staged readings or one acts. I know sometimes being in a show is a lot of commitment. For a lot of plays, especially musicals, I mean, you can spend 4 or 5 days of your week at the theater during rehearsals and then performances. It's a huge lift. So it's something that, when you go into it, to really take that in consideration. But there are so many opportunities. Maybe you do want to be front and center, but you don't want that sort of commitment. The staged readings or a one act may be something to start off with. There's lots of opportunities, like you said, for education and for learning. So if you want to learn maybe some improv, like you kind of got to see a little bit of just now, there's lots of opportunities to learn as well. We're not going to expect anyone to come in knowing 100% of everything. And that's even true if you've done this before, right? So I will say every theater is different. If you've acted at St. Mark's Players, which is my home theater, the only community theater in Washington, D.C., it's a very different experience to go across the river and act in Little Theater of Alexandria, or to go down the road a little farther and act or work in Aldersgate Community Theater, or right now I'm working out in Vienna. Every theater has its own kind of personality. So even if you do know a lot about something, you can still grow and learn as you expand into new theaters. I think the next slide. One of the things that I love about theater is the opportunity to be super creative. I love doing arts and crafts, but there's only so much space in my house, for things that I create on my own. So one of the things I love about doing props or costumes or that sort of creative outlet is that I get to do arts and crafts with a purpose. So when you're thinking about theater, think of ways that perhaps you could be, express yourself in a lot of creative ways. If you like to sew, you could get into costuming. If you like to paint, we always need people to help paint our sets. Like I said, there's a lot of opportunity to expand in your creativity in your free time as well. The next slide is, excellent. So I mentioned like there's a lot of components behind the scenes that are very built on like actually designing the set. So when you walk into a theater and you see the actual thing in front of you, so much work has gone in to put that show together, right? Someone had to read through that script and say, what is the best way to tell this story on a stage? And that goes for the set design. So they have to design the set. And then people much smarter than I am construct that set. I love to help, but I'm not a master carpenter. When you see all the lights, some of the amazing effects that you see are from our lighting designers and our sound designers. When you're thinking, then you're sitting not just in a musical, but in a play, in a drama, and you hear the sound of crickets or the atmosphere just come alive around you. These are all designers who have taken their time and put their heart and soul into creating this experience. And then behind all of it, you have your director who has constructed all of this together. It's their vision. A stage manager who's wearing some super fun headphones, not unlike Dave is wearing right now, calling all of those shots behind the scenes to make sure it all runs on time. And then the producer who is usually sitting outside in the lobby doing things like managing the books and making sure no one gets hurt, um, and that all the things run. But if any of those sound fun to you, everything from project management to painting and sound design, please look into community theater. I promise you will find something that fits. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm next. I'll be playing more on or talking more about some of the roles. But a few things I want to say is in my view, if you haven't been involved in community theater or attended a community theater, I think the only thing amateur about the community theater is that people don't get paid. The attention to detail and the idea of putting on a high quality, a professional level production is quite intense, and people take things very seriously. Doesn't mean it's not going to be fun, but it's like we're putting on, people are paying to see this, and we're putting on a professional level show the best we can with our $500 set budget and $200 costume. But actually, budgets are for a theater that has somebody maybe as much as 1,000, which goes very quickly between costumes and sets. But you'd be amazed at the quality and the makeup, people with so much experience or people who can learn these things. So you're not going to put on an amateur production. It's going to be something you could be proud of. And different theaters have different kinds of shows you like to put on, like Silver Spring Stage, where I've season tickets and I've been on the board. They like to do things more on the edgy side. They'll never put on Neil Simon. And if you don't like edgy, then go to a different theater that puts on, puts on Neil Simon and things. Different, so you'll find what you like, and you might find many things that you like. But we talked a lot about those different roles and things you can do. And then there's things that even if you don't, like I don't have any arts and crafts skills. I can't draw a straight line with a ruler. I'm learning about props. You can get people to help you learn those things. I was in a couple of shows with someone who was learning to do props. Eventually, she got to be in charge of props after just a couple of shows. But and everything you see needs someone in charge of it when you go there, and things you don't see. So Margaret talked about the set and the costumes and the decision on every painting you see on the wall or every pepper shaker you see, what that should be. But what you don't see is the people who put together the program, who may have no interest in acting at all or know nothing about theater and plays and who's being nominated for Tonys and Obies, but they're good at editing and putting together a program. Someone has to do that. Someone has to handle the box office. Some people just like to do hospitality, and they get to see a theater of each play every season, and they help people to their seats, and they help sometimes selling refreshments. Some people like to do fundraising. Every theater needs fundraising. Tickets do not cover the cost. And in Washington, rent is very expensive for places. It's why I've had a lot of community theaters close in my time, because they can't afford places or anymore. The places they operate in have been sold or closed. People to do publicity, as you see, that's there. Lawyers are needed. Grant writers are needed. Anything you're interested in, you can go in and say, or call them up. Say, I have an interest in helping this way. Is there a way that I can help? Or you might go to a theater and they will say, we need volunteers, or we need volunteers for this thing at their opening announcements. So if you just want, my wife, who would rather, I don't know what she would rather do, rather pretty much do anything you can think of, drink arsenic, than appear on stage, was Silver Spring Stage's financial manager for 4 years. Except for me, every actor, every board member I knew hated numbers. I like numbers, I'm an economist. But But here they had someone to jump up and say, I'll take care of the numbers, I'll write the checks, I'll tell you when you're about to go broke if you don't get a grant or start selling more tickets. And it was just so appreciated because someone also has to pay the bills for the people who spend money on the construction and the costumes. You don't want them waiting a couple months to get that. So just so many opportunities, some backstage, some on stage, some not on the stage, not in the theater at all, but outside of it. I'll go to the next slide, please. So this is a list just of the watch theaters, the Washington area community theaters. Ira mentioned, along with a couple of others that I know in Maryland. There are probably others I don't know about. And of course, I see, we have people throughout the country. I can work with AACT with you, or Ira could to help you find a theater in your area. But you can see, if we just go to the middle, if you're in DC, we have St. Mark's Players. Virginia, which is the lower left hand, you can see that there's a lot of theaters where you are in Alexandria, in Southern Maryland, in La Plata, Hartburg. I've seen some of these shows. La Plata, the middle of nowhere, they have a nuclear power plant and a base there. I think it's Air Force, I'm not sure. The shows are incredible. The sets are incredible. And I've been out in Fairfax and further out. And then in Maryland, from Annapolis to Damascus to the north, to the Rockville area, northern Montgomery County. And also we have many that are on the Eastern Shore. We have some others in Southern Maryland that aren't mentioned here, up in Baltimore, out in Frederick and Hagerstown, a lot of community theaters. So lots of opportunities if you're into this. The parking's a lot cheaper than professional theater. The shows are great. I still love professional theater too, but you can get a lot of interesting stuff from these theaters. And the next slide, please. Oh, that's not me. So I didn't speak. Oh, yes, this is me. Fun and friendship. So I was intimidated, and in fact, you still find some of the people you find in theater are people who studied theater in college. They wanted to be professional. These days, their jobs are just something that allows them to do theater in their free time. But wonderful people. And then there's people like me or Ira or Margaret who got into it different ways. Some people who want to pursue their acting have taken some classes at different places. I'm one of them, actually. But some people have taken a lot more. You make great friends. I did not find my spouse here, but we're lucky to have a big house. And so we try to have a cast party. Sometimes we've had parties for our friends who attend and the cast, and they get together and get to interact with each other, which is fun. And so my wife loves watching these theater people entertain each other, entertain her. I told people when we were meeting about this, about 10, 12 years ago, my 15-year-old son had a stroke. A blood vessel burst in his brain, and he's fine now. But he was in the hospital for about 3 months. And a lot of our friends came to support us, but as a group, the theater friends were the ones who really come through. He had known them because he come to help out in plays I've been, and he was the stage crew for a play that closed the day after his stroke that I was in. You make wonderful friends. You see them in other productions. They come to your productions. Again, at this play festival that I just had, we had 10 companies from throughout Maryland. The ones that are local, about 4 or 5 of them were from Montgomery County, and a lot of people I've worked with before in other shows. It was great to see them. Some people we've brought in to this association, and people I've met who are from other companies who have come back to this festival. It's and people have been in this association, this Festival Association longer than I have. They have friendships going 20, 25 years. And they were young, or 30 years, so they remember the nights of drinking back when they had it. Um, uh, One group has a 12th night party. They've been doing it for over 30 years, um, in January every year. And it's a good time to see old friends. Um, Sometimes marriages do happen. I know of several, and I'm not interested in that. I'm set in that. But again, the friendships and the community are just outstanding. I think uh, some people find that in their jobs, some people find it in their houses of worship. Some people find it in their theater. Sometimes people find it in all three. Um, and it's really great. And you also see kids grow up and take greater roles as well. So I'm looking at the young people on the screen as well. So I think that's it for my contribution. Oh, yeah. Should I do this or is someone else doing this? I don't remember.
Dave
Oh.
and the whole team, actually, can I ask one question before we get into these resources? Dave, in your background, and you mentioned early on that there was a Maryland Community Theater Festival. Is there a Virginia Community Theater Festival Association?
I hope so. Maryland is part of the Eastern States region, which does not include Virginia. So I don't know, Ira, maybe you know if LTA is involved with a Virginia association.
I don't know the answer to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know I'm starting to get involved at the national level. There are 9 regions across the country. I know there's a couple of states that are not involved. I think Virginia is, but it's up to a theater company whether they want to be involved in terms of whether they have a statewide festival or not.
Judy,
So
they are.
on
Oh,
the screen now, we have additional resources. So do you want to talk to us about what kinds of contacts our guests can make?
Sure. I can start. As I mentioned, my first home theater was St. Mark's Players. We are located in DC on Capitol Hill. I am also the board chair of that particular theater company. I think, one of the things that as a role that you can play if you're not interested in actually working on a show itself, like Dave mentioned, being the finance officer is sitting on boards and sitting on watch and sitting on, all these other things. We have several folks on the board who don't work in the shows on a regular basis, but they just help make sure that the company is active and following all the rules and doing all the good things. So if you're in the DC area, that's my email address, and I would love to have you reach out if you want to come and play with us. We do 3 shows a year. Usually our fall show is some sort of something. Sometimes we've done Our Town, we've done the birthday party. It can be new and edgy. It can be super traditional. Our winter show is what we usually call our thinking show. And usually we try and have something with some sort of commentary on just life, especially around the DC area. We've done a variety of shows. I'm partnered with local organizations to bring those communities in to learn more about the theater as well. And then our spring musical is usually our classic big show that we do every year. So if you want to come and work on any of those, we would love to have you.
Yeah, and I would say the same for the Little Theater of Alexandria, where Margaret is also extremely active, and her husband. You can check out our website for sure. There's lots of information about upcoming auditions, all of the different ways that you can volunteer. There's contact information on there, but you're welcome to contact me at my email address as well. Generally, what we'll do is if you express an interest, we'll put you in touch with a particular person who handles that area. So, for example, if you want to try out ushering, there's always openings for that. or our will call or box office, and we have someone who will get right back in touch with you and give you whatever training is necessary, and get you involved as quickly as you can. We'd love to have you join us.
Yeah. So please contact me if you're interested in other companies, particularly throughout Maryland, but throughout the country, I can try to help. I just want to say I've been to both St. Mark's and the Little Theater of Alexandria. Great shows. St. Mark's, like some other companies, is a very intimate theater, and I saw a very powerful show there. And there's something about seeing very powerful shows in intimate spaces. Um, and so I put Rockville Little Theater here as a source because I think it's the easiest place to volunteer. They just have all these things every week. When they have a show, they send an email like, we're doing set building now and we'll take anybody, or set painting, and very good. Silver Spring Stage, ssstage.org/volunteer, particularly if you want to do hospitality, but there's other things. But if you're in other parts of Maryland, want to get other companies, I can give you contact information. But I think with Watch, I don't know about if Margaret, if you're involved with that, but Ira and I could probably help you get in contact with the other companies. Okay, so any of the three of us, if you're interested in that as well. And if you're in, say, Louisiana, where I lived for a year in Baton Rouge, or Minnesota or wherever. No, this is Minnesota, it was Milwaukee. I'll try to get you in touch with the right people up there.
Actually, we just had a question in the chat box about how does one find community theater groups in their community. This particular individual is in Chicago. I just Googled community theaters near me. And for Chicago, for Milwaukee, for a couple of different areas, and lots of information came up. So something as simple as a Google search, community theaters near me, might get some of our guests from across the country some additional information. Would you all agree that maybe the first place to start for someone who had an interest in community theater, particularly here in the Maryland, DC, Virginia group, would be to go to the websites that you have shared here with us, the St. Mark's Players, the Little Theater, the Rockville Little Theater? Would that be a good place to start if someone thinks they have an interest?
Yeah, I would say absolutely.
I mean, as welcoming as all the theaters I think are, it is nice if you know someone, even if it's just because you saw someone on a webinar. That can be a nice help just to get in and feel like you already have an in someplace. So I think if anybody wants to come and play any of those three, we would love to invite you, and we will be your friend and invite you in, welcome you to the community.
Yeah, I forgot to mention I've performed at Rockville and produced there, so they know me if you mentioned my name. But the same for a lot of the other theaters, or not a lot, but some of the other theaters.
I may be playing stump the panelists here, but we've had a question. Is there an online or virtual community theater?
Yes.
How would one research that one?
Let me just go on my Facebook, because there is something that someone I know started on just I don't know if I can find it on during Facebook, and it was geez, I can't remember the name of it, but I got an email about it. I will look for it while we're talking.
And maybe put it, yeah, David, if you want to put that in the chat, maybe, or I can come back to you.
I can't find it. I'd say email me. Because what I will do, I don't want to put the email here, but I can give you the email of the person who heads that up. and do that, because she'll put out things, and then they just do play readings online. And yeah, if I do find it, I will I will put it on here.
I've got a couple other questions. So if you find something, just jump in and share it or put it in the chat box. We have a question. Do you have any, they're calling it hacks. I'm going to call it ideas, suggestions, lighting and stage props to help for community theaters on a shoestring budget?
Oh. Lighting, I can't speak a lot to, because that's usually built into the theater. And I will say, outside of buying new bulbs, we don't usually spend a lot of money on lighting from show to show. But for props, borrow as much as you can. So find either another, I will say one thing about LTA, Little Theater of Alexandria. They have huge storage opportunities. And so costumes, props, set dressing, furniture, they're kind of a storehouse for a lot of the community theaters in the area. And so like St. Mark's Players doesn't keep a lot, and we don't have a large budget for those items. So we borrow a ton, so that we don't actually have to invest in them. And then also no one has to keep them, and have 6 different stores of the same things all over the place. I think the other one for props is I Google a lot and I use Pinterest on how to figure out how to make things from stuff you already have around your house. I mean, the number of cakes and things I've made from an Amazon box and, some Elmer's glue and paint. It's kind of amazing what you can pull together if you start to Google.
Yeah, I would go also with the interactive, the large theater groups will share things, or there may be technicians who have their own supplies that they will share with. In I work with in Silver Spring Stage recently, which has great lighting supplies. They need a certain kind of light, and this guy just brought in the lighting designer just brought in his very large and heavy lights. I'm not a techie, so I don't know what the issue was, but yeah, if you ask other theaters, and they're very good about renting out. Like they'll rent out supplies for like $25 donation, and it could be you need one little chair, or chairs and couches and tables, and still say $25.
Yeah, I would even say even some parts of our sets you'll see move from one theater to another. A lot of our community theaters we're doing very similar or the same shows. At Little Theater later on this season, we're doing The Play That Goes Wrong, and Arlington Theater is doing that coming up right away, and another theater has just done that one. And sometimes we'll talk to each other and say, hey, can we use these parts of your sets for ours? Because a lot of times, once our shows are done, we just destroy the sets. And it's kind of sad for me to see after all the work that goes into it. But we save some parts, but mostly we just take them all apart.
Could each one of you share your favorite show that you've worked on? Or if you don't want to share your favorite, what about a show that you wish to work on? I'm a firm believer that if you put it out there in the universe, it happens. So I'll take either your favorite or what are you wishing for?
I saw Margaret said, like shocked to say that, because it's like saying, what's your favorite child? I mean, and so I have loved every show that I've been involved in, no matter what my role has been. I mean, obviously I have a special, love for the ones where I've been a producer. We have one of our actors, Robin Reeves, it's on today here with us. And Nakarima Society was just an absolutely fantastic show that we all enjoyed being involved in. I've done Christmas Carol a number of times and always have a lot of fun with all the kids' involvement with that and the parents' involvement. But one really special experience that I had, which was early on in my producing career, was during the pandemic. The Little Theater decided we were not going to have our stage dark throughout the pandemic. So after only a few months of being closed, we started up right away with just the small types of performances with maybe one or two actors involved. If it was two actors, it was a husband and wife, so they could be together on the stage. But I got involved. We decided to do a Christmas Carol that December in 2020. And we had a very creative director, Mike Baker. And he came up with the idea of, well, we can only have two actors, live actors on the screen at on the stage at any one time. And they have to be 10 feet apart during the pandemic when they're performing. And we can't have any kids on. So what we did is, and I think there was one of the pictures on one of the slides, is we did green screen filming of most of the actors. So they appeared on the screen. And my background is actually one of the sets that we did, the digital set that we used for Christmas Carol. So we filmed the actors against a green screen, and then we obtained digital backgrounds and we placed them on those backgrounds. And if anyone's interested, there's actually a documentary that Mike Baker made about the filming of this, and actually the full show, because we performed it live, but we were limited to only 40 audience members at that time, because we had to have them well apart from each other. And so we also did provide that online during the holiday season, I guess through a little bit after the 1st of January in 2021. And I think they're both available on YouTube as well, if anyone's interested. So that was certainly the most unusual experience that I've had.
Do you want to go?
Go ahead.
So,
So again, it's kind of like picking your children. I don't have any, but I feel like that's probably what it's like. There are three that stand out in my head, so I apologize for taking liberties with my favorite. I feel like I have to say Harvey at Little Theater, because that is where I met my husband. We were both backstage, and he kept bringing snacks every night. Which was delightful. It was also where I met a lot of the people that I've become really close to in community theater. They happen to have worked somewhere on that show. And so, like, I mean, even just last night, I was having dinner with a handful of friends, and I think three of them worked on Harvey, that show. So that was a special one. And then one of the ones I did at St. Mark's was actually not my first one, but we did Peter and the Starcatcher one summer, and I did props. If you've ever seen Peter and the Starcatcher, there are a lot of really unique props. So like a pineapple that gets tossed and then sliced in half. I guess has to come apart so that it's in two halves every night. And it was just so much fun, and it was made extra fun because my parents were visiting. My dad is an old theater guy, grew up in the theater, like taught theater. And so that summer when he was visiting, we made a lot of the props together. And so that was super fun to get. And I had to go out of town, and he spent 3 or 4 days looking for red bowls to use as the eyeballs of this alligator. And he would just go over to the theater almost every day during rehearsal and ask the director, who's another like best friend of mine, Heather, did these work? What about these bowls? And he was like on a scavenger hunt for bowls. And my third is actually one at LTA again that was Blue Stockings, and it's because it was my first time that I got to produce at LTA. And it also got interrupted by the pandemic. We were halfway through rehearsals when the pandemic happened, but we got to come back 2 years later with about 80% of our cast and crew and do the show for real 2 years later. And that was an amazing experience with that team.
well, Margaret, I was going to do 3 too, so now I don't feel bad.
Okay.
Two were plays that I was in, Diary of Anne Frank and Grapes of Wrath. if I could cast, it's usually more of a comedy, and these are clearly not comedies. And the Grapes of Wrath, I was on stage a lot. I didn't have as many lines, which means I had to figure out how to do things while I was not talking. But incredible stories, incredible casts. I learned so much from them, and very meaningful shows. It just felt privileged to be part of them. Another show where I was a producer was the musical Assassins, Sondheim musical, which I wasn't familiar with the show itself, but I knew what it was about, which I'm a presidential history buff, and it's about various presidential assassins, and it's actually an incredible show. And I guess it's on a lot of bucket lists for actors. So again, incredibly talented actors. And for me, producing is a pain in the neck. I'll be frank, it's like work. You don't get to do any of the fun. It's an organization. You don't get to do as much of the fun stuff. If something goes wrong, it's your fault. But on the other hand, you don't have to worry about remembering lines. And if you do things right, you work with these people who put on this beautiful art. And it's such a privilege. And I knew the director was very high quality and had it together. And it's just the most beautiful show. Again, intimate setting, very, very intense shows. And it was just before, it closed a few weeks before the Trump assassination attempt. And it's like, we don't know about that young man who shot at him or what motivated him, but it seemed like that story would probably fit in with these mostly lost people who Sondheim wrote about, who sort of lost in society. And the premise is like, there's this carnival barker who says, I can get you the alternative American dream. You could be famous, you could be eternal. And, it's a horrible thing. And it was a privilege to help them in whatever way I could.
Dave, I will point out that while we were all talking, you did find an answer to the question about virtual or interactive drama. So that is in the chat box. The individual who asked about virtual activity, online theater is the Coalition of Virtually Interactive Drama. Dave suggests you might be able to access this via Facebook. If not, Dave has his email address there for you to contact him directly. We're coming up on the hour here. We just have a couple of minutes, and I'm gonna put y'all on the spot one more time, but hopefully with something that's got a fun response. Have any of you had to deal with drama divas on the set of community theater? And would you like to share, without naming names, one example of that? Y'all are laughing. Come on.
It hasn't happened in a long time. It was earlier, the first shows that I did, it seemed like, well, Tech Week, the week you're going into production, and you have like one day, like a 10 or 12-hour rehearsal, you're doing all the tech, and then you're there late at night every night, and everybody's tired and your defenses are down, and you've been nice about this one jerk who's there, and it turned out that, and you can't keep it right, and it turned out there was one, everybody had the same jerk, and it brought the cast together, and that really helped with things. Sometimes it was a diva, somebody it was just, I guess it was a diva. There aren't many divas, I will say, and most directors won't tolerate it. At least in the shows I've been in. Since that time, that hasn't happened to me, which makes me wonder if I'm the jerk. Just kidding. I've been told I'm not. But yeah, but most directors either find a way to tone it down or just don't let it happen. And we've also, I mean, you can have someone who's not a diva, but some sexual harassers with people I haven't encountered, like I said, I might not encounter, but people have become very explicit about setting policies on that, any kind of harassment. And say, if you harass somebody, you're out. So it could be physical harassment. I've seen a bully will got put down and would never get cast in the area again because by people who knew him, he bullied young people. And yeah, but he got put
Margaret,
down.
you want to share, or you want me to declare we're out of time and take you off the hook?
I mean, I would just say yes to all of that they do exist. Community theater is a subset of the population. And so there is a little bit of everything in there. Hopefully, like what Dave said, they can get weeded out and either learn a lesson or not be invited back, which is what I've seen most of the time happen. And that's where a good, strong producer comes into play, right? Is if you have someone who's misbehaving in any of those ways, and where that, if you have a good, strong person in that role, hopefully that issue doesn't last for long.
Yeah, I would say that there's a lot of people who are entitled to be divas who are not, who are just wonderful, wonderful people, so talented and having egos.
Yeah, we are so fortunate in our area to have so many talented actors. And of course, most of them have day jobs and they're putting in all these extra hours in the evenings and weekends. And then on their own, just learning their lines and going through their blocking. It's really extraordinary. And the same applies to the designers that we have. I mean, the talent is just truly amazing. And this is all volunteer, and it's just extraordinary. And I just it's sort of similar, I think, what either Dave or Margaret already mentioned too. I mean, that as a producer, there's a lot of work to do, but it's just so much fun to sit in a design meeting and watch all these talented people, how they're coordinating, the set design and how the lighting is going to work and what kind of color paint should we use that would work with that lighting. It's really amazing. So just to watch all these talented people work as well as the talented actors.
Yes, even roles for introverts, especially in that building side. When we've had the parties, we have a front room where the introverts are and the back room near the food where all the actors are loud. But yes, you don't have to be an extrovert to get involved.
Very good. And with that, I will say thank you for sharing those stories. Thank you for sharing your stories and how you got involved in community theater. And thank you for sharing the slide presentation today and your expertise in the area of getting involved in community theater. I thank you for your time and your expertise. And thank you to all of our guests for joining us today. On behalf of AARP Virginia, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. We'd love to get your feedback on today's program and ideas for future programs. So you'll be receiving a follow-up email with the recording and the slideshow of today's program and a link to a survey. That link is also in the chat box if you'd like to take the survey now. Our Tuesday Explorers program will continue next week. We invite you to join us. Some of our future programs are there on the screen for you. Next week's program is the Lunar New Year calligraphy program, which we have done in previous years. This year is the year of the snake, that has both charm and expertise and education associated with it as well. Until next time, stay curious, and we invite you to keep exploring with us. The link for our Tuesday Explorer program is there on the screen, aarp.org/Tuesday Explorers, plural. And I thank you for joining us. Have a great afternoon. This was great, team. Thank you.